director of marketing. I'm an owner in the business too. It's a family business. I've been in the business since 1992, so I've seen a lot. I started a real small company. Now we're part of arguably the largest apple shipper in the United States. So it's a lot of responsibility. It's okay to be big, but you want to be the best. It's not about being just big. So kind of when you get to the top of that hill, it's hard to stay up there. There's a lot of challenges. My job basically at the company is interacting a lot with growers and also interacting with retailers and customers, making sure the message that we have at the company and our vision is communicated properly and consistently. And then I work a lot on new packaging and developing new concepts for adding value to our apples, trying to get them out of just the mainstream of being sold at a retail store to get into airports, convenience stores, all kinds of different things like that. So it's a lot of different hats, but I enjoy it. In the apple business, when I came home from school at 92, my dad had a sales agency and I started working with him there. But I'd grown up working in farming, like I told you, since I was about 10 years old. So I worked first on a pear and cherry orchard, but also on apricots. So I did everything from mowing the orchard to spraying it, to planting trees, to mowing weeds, changing sprinklers, picking the fruit, thinning the fruit.
I feel like that's a common story for Chelan.
I think it is for people in our family and for a lot of people here that live in Chelan. Yeah, so our job is to take crop data from the growers, analyze that over a historical pattern, and be able to put together a year-long picture of what we have available to ship to retailers across the country. Because they set their plans out and they allocate space in the store based on what they think we're going to be able to supply them with on a consistent basis. So at the beginning of the year when we're harvesting fruit, we're already thinking about how we're going to be servicing that retailer in March, April, May of next year, say cherries. So we take all that data, we put together a marketing plan. The marketing plan involves when we're going to plant and what we're going to plant, what package that's going to be put into, and then where it's going to be sold, whether it's a domestic sale, export. All those have some different parameters, whether what kind of wax you can use going to the UK, what kind of wax you can use going to the States. If it's going into a humid climate, you use a different type of packing procedure. So there's a lot of, we have to really be careful knowing where the fruit's going to end up. It tells us how to pack it originally in the first place. Once that's done, then we're communicating that to our retail partners. And we have two ways of selling fruit. We sell it on the spot market, which means every day we just talk about price and sell it to customers. Or with some of our key retailers, we have pricing set out 3 months in advance. So they know for 3 months this is the price. We know what the price is. It's mutually agreed that we're both semi-profitable at that price. And then we just focus on replenishing the business and growing it. We don't spend a bunch of time and calories haggling over a price, because as that price might go like this, if you just draw a straight line through the middle, it's about where it is anyway. So just get rid of all that extra calories and just get down to growing the business. So Chelan Fresh came together in August of 2004, and the reason the growers got together was because on the retail side there was a lot of consolidation. So the number of growers was a large pool, and the number of buyers had shrunk. And so the buyers were pitting all these different growers against each other. And so as they consolidated, it kind of more evenly matched the number of buyers to the number of growers. And so it just gave them a little bit more leverage as far as asking for a price that was at least profitable. So that was the main reason for consolidation with Chelan Fresh. It is grower owned. We, like I told you before, we take the cost of operating the sales and marketing office, we divide that by the number of boxes that we estimate we're going to ship that year, and that is the per box cost. And we stick with that pretty good. We have a pretty good budget. There is a board. Like I told you, the board is my father, Bob Riggan, is the chairman of the board, and then there are two members from Chelan Fruit, our big apple co-op. There are two members from Getler's Farms, and then there are two members from Orton Fruit. which is located in Yakima. Those members of the board are all growers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then at Chelan Fruit, they have a board that's about 25 members strong. But Chelan Fruit is represented on the Chelan Fresh board by the CEO of Chelan Fruit and the president of their board, which are both growers. So they come over to our board meetings. And then the Bortons have John Borton and his son Eric Borton, and they're represented on it. And then the Gevers have the two oldest governors, and they're sort of all growers.
And the co-op, is that where most of the growers are underneath that co-op?
Yeah, the majority of the growers are in the co-op. The Bortons and the Gevers are just two individual families. Yeah. So there might be 10 to 20 family members amongst each of the families that are all participating in growing the food, packing it, harvesting it. Well, I'd say all in, we probably have close to 400 growers bringing fruit into
spread
us.
all over Washington.
Yeah, in central Washington, yeah. When everybody came together, there was about 3 or 4 different companies. They all had their own label. And so it'd be like taking Ford, GM, and Chrysler, putting them all together, and then deciding which one of the brands was the strongest and going with that. And that's kind of what we did.
Right.
The other part that drives that, like I said, is when you go into an export market, you want to be able to have different labels so that the buyers over there aren't carving each other up all on the same label.
Okay. Do you know how many countries you guys ship it?
55.
Did you rhyme off a few of them?
Oh, yeah, we ship to Indonesia, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, Iceland, the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates. It's about 26,000 between all the entities. Yeah,
400 growers. And varieties, it seems like you guys are about across the board.
Yeah, how many varieties we have? I mean, it's on pears, it's about 6. On apples, just ballparking with the new varieties we have, it's probably about 16 different varieties of apples.
Okay, do you want to talk about the sugar bee at all?
The sugar bee is the one we're most excited about. It's an exclusive apple for us. The industry is moving toward what we call these club varieties, which gives growers control over the supply. So in the past, when an apple came out like a Gala or a Fuji, well, it was new and exciting. It was open to everybody. So once it got planted to the point of non-profitability, I call it, then all of a sudden everybody carved each other up by just trying to be the lowest price guy. That's how you got your sale. You didn't have any competitive advantage then for maybe being lower price or maybe having a perceived better quality pack because you graded your fruit on high. But then you need to have more money for it because you're shortening your own crop. So the club varieties, whether it's Envy or Jazz or Pinata or Dazzle, Rocket, Sugar Bee, and the Koru, we have complete control over the supply, and so we can grow that to where it matches the demand at a price that's profitable and just stop right there.
Cultivation?
Yeah, about 10% of our product is organic.
Okay. 10%, I guess it's probably pretty similar to like cultivation, like the 10% of the cultivation, or do you feel like it might be a bit disproportionate? Like, I mean, 10% of your product coming through is organic, but maybe not 10% of the acres under cultivation?
It's about the same, yeah. You get a little less production on an organic orchard because you can't use synthetic fertilizer, so your production's lower, which is another reason you got to ask a premium, because you're spending the same amount of resources on an acre, but growing about 30% less apples. So if you don't ask a premium, you're losing money. So it probably starts, I would say, like in January, February, where a tree is pruned. So all the growth that's happened over the last year that's made the tree unwieldy, it just got too big, that all gets pruned back. And that allows the tree to focus all its energy just mostly on the wood that has fruit growing on it. Once that happens, we wait until the blooms come out, the blossoms, which is about May. Bees are put in hives throughout the orchard. It's all pollinated. An apple orchard can literally be completely pollinated in 4 hours if the temperature,
They come in on like hives, eh?
Yeah.
Like an apiary.
Beehives, yeah. And then they just go back, and then the apiary, they collect the honey, and they go like that. We pay a fee for the bees, so they come in, they do their thing. And then once that happens, then it's just kind of Mother Nature does her thing until the apples get about the size of a golf ball, and then we'll go in and thin them off. So we'll take enough apples off so that there's maximum production on the tree, but also maximum quality. You don't want to overcrop the tree, and you don't want to undercrop it either. So we put the apples, enough apples on the tree so that we get a nice bell-shaped curve. We're trying to grow like 72, 80, 80. That's nice apples. And then once summer's over, starting in fall, late August, all the way through Halloween, we just start picking the fruit. Depending on the variety and the elevation that it's grown, that depends on all the harvest. That's why harvest will run for like almost 3 months.
When would you say, so end of
August is when we get started, like with some pears, and then some galas are also harvested then. And then into September, October, it's heavy. Everything's getting big.
And then so from there...
So once that happens, they're in the bin, they're brought to the warehouse, they're immediately washed, they're visually inspected, and they're also cut open to look at the internal quality, and they'll do a starch test where they spray it with a dye. Depending on the color it turns, they'll know what the starch to sugar conversion is. On apples that have a low starch to conversion, they'll put those in long-term controlled atmosphere. Apples that are picked a little bit later on the tree that have been allowed to ripen a little more, those will be put in short-term seeding storage. And then after that's all done, we have a map of the whole facility. We know how many bins are in each room of each variety, and so we have an idea of how much fruit we have. Then again, that data is sent to the sales agency, and we take that and make a plan for the year.
Right. Okay. And from there, through the warehouse that we just went through.
Yeah, and the fruit's back into any one of hundreds of configurations for retail, export, and convenience store outlets. Orders are placed, trucks come in, fruit's consolidated, palletized, put on the truck, sent on its way.
So, the grocers in Canada, like Save-On, you said you have contracts with Save-On, do they come down to your, like, to their seed?
They have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Every once in a while they'll come down. We actually spend a lot of time going up there. I'm going up there at 2 weeks from now for a big gala dinner where we take our wives and we see all the retailers and we have a nice dinner dance. But it just builds that relationship, and we talk a little bit about business and just make sure that everything's going good and kind of give them a heads up of what's coming down the pike. They'll start telling us when they think Canadian apples will run down so that we need to get ready to fill that gap. Because for the most part, they'll use Canadian apples all through the gap about January, and that's when Washington really fills the gap.
I've heard a produce manager at Save-On actually told me that there's a thing called a produce broker. So Save-On will have a guy down here trying to figure out where the best fruit is. And have you ever run into one of those?
Yeah, that used to be kind of the norm years ago. But what happened then is that the retailers really wanted to talk directly to the shipper, because when you look at the two different parties, the retailer has the most capital invested on that side, the grower has the most capital invested on this side, so their incentives are pretty much the same. A broker in the middle is not really invested in either one. His interests are pretty much on for his own. That's human nature. I'm not saying that's wrong, that's just human nature. So if a broker sees an opportunity that where he can have some information maybe, and I'm not saying they're all this way, but if he knows information about maybe the crop is big here, he may or may not pass that on to the retailer. He may charge the retailer the same price but pay the grower a smaller price. So the grower now is not benefiting from lowering his price and driving more movement at the store. He's just giving more money to the guy in between. And that information block is what really kind of has been the reduction in brokers being used by either the retailer or the shipper. It's called direct business. The broker most often works for the buyer. Yeah, and probably 30 years ago, there was a lot of brokers because the retail deal was so fragmented. You had 25 stores here, 50 stores there. As Kroger bought stores up and stuff, that all got consolidated, and Kroger said, hey, we want to talk to you specifically so we know what's going on. And all this money that's been taken in between, we're going to share it. We're going to give you a little bit more, and we're going to take a little bit. And then we're going to make more to pay off our capital expenditures. And you guys are going to have more money to invest in your land and your production. So you'll always have better quality. Some guys in the middle got pretty rich off the at the expense of the bookends.
Okay, so you guys don't have a broker anymore? You just go straight to it? Yeah. Okay.
It comes to the point where you just have a relationship, so you know each other. You see each other 3 or 4 times a year. There's a couple golf tournaments that are charity golf tournaments that we go up and we sit down, we play golf, we have dinner, we talk about things, and then we'll get together via email or phone, and we'll talk about the crop. We'll say, hey, we got a lot of small fruit this year, or a lot of bigger fruit. Let's try to work with this parameter, and then we'll tell the retailer, well, we want to move so many loads per week. What retail price will make our apples attractive in your store compared to the other things you sell, like grapes and oranges, so that we can sell that much fruit? Because a customer's only going to come in and buy so much stuff. You know, they're going to buy so many oranges, so many apples, or whatever maybe is on sale, and then they're done. So we work with a retailer, and it's a little hard for them because they got the orange guy saying the same thing to them. They got the grape guy, you know. So luckily with apples, they do pretty well with apples. It's a low shrink item, meaning they don't throw much away for what they buy. And so they'll sit down and say, well, okay, we think this price will do good for a while, and then we might be able to raise it after this. So those are just some we sit down and say, okay, here's a price we can live with. They'll say, okay, that we can live with that price. So we'll say that price is good for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, we'll negotiate. We'll see what's going on. Maybe apples in China have dried up, or you know, citrus deal's gotten short, so now you need more apples, so there's a little bit more demand. Customer will pay for it. And the retailers, yeah, we get it. We'll raise our price, and they make more. So it's just a matter of figuring out that customer that comes in the store, what are they going to buy? Because there's about 600 items in the produce department now. Apples is just one of them. 30 years ago, there was about 300 items. So you got mangoes year-round, you got all the berries year-round, grapes are year-round, citrus, blueberries, all that stuff that was seasonal. No, it's not seasonal anymore. So someone that bought blueberries for 2 months might have switched to apples when the blueberries were gone. So that's one of our biggest challenges in the apple industry is we're not the big boy in town like we used to be. We're sharing that retail space with some really good competitors. We ship to Metro Richelieu up in Montreal. We ship to Sobeys. We ship to Longos. We ship to a lot of independents that I don't know who they are because we work with a company called Fresh Taste in Canada, and they go to all those little independent mom and pop stores. And in Montreal, we work with a company called Chelan, Chenail, Chenail, and they sell to a lot of independent stores. And we don't have time to go around all those little stores and try to supply them. So Chenail is kind of like the same thing as a Walmart DC. So we sell to Walmart up there. We sell to Costco Canada. We sell to Sam's.
What's a Walmart?
Distribution center.
Oh, DC.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
And then we ship to country markets and quality foods. We ship to Associated Wholesale Grocers up there. They have different banners. So we don't ship to Loblaws. I think that's the only big retailer that we don't ship to.
Do you know how many provinces or which ones? Or?
I guess you can count PEI because Sobeys is out there. The Northwest Territories. I don't really think we ship much up into those guys. That's all shipped by dog sled. We have a very rigorous food safety program down here. We have the United States Department of Agriculture that oversees things, and we also have the Washington State Department of Agriculture, and they inspect almost every load that comes out of our warehouse. Especially if it's going to Canada. They make sure that the packaging's bilingual. They make sure that it meets certain codes for going into Canada and food safety things, that there's no debris in the box, that there's no hidden contraband. The only real challenge for us going into Canada is having to have this bilingual on the bags. It's funny because if you really broke Canada down, there's probably more people speaking Chinese up there than there is French anymore. I mean, you got a lot of East Indians and Winnipeg and Toronto, so it's really pretty cosmopolitan up there. Most everybody speaks English. So it's kind of a hassle when we're putting a new bag together that we got to put all this bilingual stuff. Sometimes we think it puts way too much text on the bag, it makes it ugly. So that's one thing that we wish would go away, is just get rid of that bilingual thing.
because you ship to 55 countries, do you have to do that with most? Is Canada one of like the
Canada's the only one.
The only one
that absolutely mandates it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a great partner because they speak English, they have a strong dollar, they have rule of law, and they're decent. They're decent people. I mean, they're not perfect, but we don't even consider Canada an export market. They are, but we don't think of it as export.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice when our dollars match up
Yeah.
because our apples are expensive up there. I think it's $1.30 Canadian to our dollar. So a $10 box of apples here costs them $13.
Yeah.
So we'd like to have that on par.
Right.
You got pretty close a few years ago.
Yeah. You got more at your guys' expense, so like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, so we don't really vacation a lot up there. So if you vacation a lot in Canada, you like the dollar.
Yeah.
But if you're doing business, it'd be nice if we just. One thing I'd like to see is that bilingual go away and Canada just use the U.S. dollar. We just literally go 300 miles north. We're all in the same currency.
Harbins are working.
Most of the migrant workers are in the fields. People that are more they're here all year round working in the warehouse because that's 12 months a year. But the harvest is only 3 months a year. So they'll work up here. They'll start in California, and they'll come up here, and then they'll stay around a little bit to do some of the pruning, and then they'll go back to California and work in the strawberries or whatever. The H2A workers that we bring in, they're here fairly permanently from 8 to 11 months. And so we bring those in, and then they live in the housing that we provide for them.
Are those the warehouse workers?
No, those are youth farm workers.
Okay, so the people that work in the warehouse are from...
Not each. We have a small H2B program, and like I said, that was a couple hundred women from Jamaica and Cuba that worked in the warehouses, I think, for about 6 months. As a test, we wanted to see how that went. Make sure they get treated well. You don't want any bad stuff happening to them.
So you got Jamaica, Mexico, and one other.
That's it.
Okay. Jamaica and Mexico.
Well, labor cost is a major challenge. And then the other challenge we have, which we really can't complain about, is our strong dollar makes our products expensive everywhere around the world. So that's just a fact of life. But some of the things we think we could control is tariffs. If we could get to where we have open access to other countries that have open access coming this way. For years, before Trump was president, everything was coming to America for free, but every time we went somewhere, we were tariffed. So getting rid of those tariffs and letting people just compete on a global basis based on who does it the best, and the best quality and all that, let the consumer decide. And so Washington apples have built themselves a presence on the world stage without any government help, any government subsidy, and they've done that by having a consistent, high-quality product. And we're lucky that we're right next to Seattle because we're only 2.5 hours from a major seaport, and that gives us access to the world. So if we were located over in Montana, Wyoming, way over there, it'd be a real barrier to exporting all that fruit.
So you'd like to see trade barriers open up more?
Yeah.
Okay. And then anything else going forward that you would like to see change for the industry?
Well, I think, so when it comes to labor wages, nobody wants to pay their workers a fair deal that we do. Our human labor, they are the lifeblood of our company. We have to have them. You have to take good care of them, and we always have. What's frustrating is when the government comes in and says, even if this guy doesn't produce, you got to give him an adverse wage rate as much as the guy that's working hard. That kills the incentive of the hard workers, and it just enables the poor producers to stay around. The hard fact of life is you have to get up in the morning and produce. That's what makes the world a good place. If you don't foster a culture of that, then you just get a really mediocre economy and business structure. So I think what Washington growers want is let us pay our workers what we pay them, because we have to pay them decent. And don't come tell us that we have to pay them this or this, because a lot of times we're paying the same rate here as they pay in Seattle. It costs a lot more money to live in Seattle. And so that same, just like when you look at my son's a principal, and he makes X amount of dollars doing school over there by the dam. his same job in Seattle pays $60,000 more, but they're doing the same job in two different places. It kind of flows with the cost of living. So when people in Olympia just levy a wage rate and then just put it across the whole state, it's like they don't care. It's like they're being intellectually lazy or dishonest to really check out and say, well, does this really work? Because if businesses get to where they're not competitive and go out of business, then there's no wage to pay at all. Then that guy doesn't have just what he thinks is a lower wage, he has no wage.
So you'd like to see less generalization?
Yeah, I think less government overreach and stipulation, because our industry has been alive and well since the early 1920s, and you don't last that long in a farming industry that's got weather problems, all the things that have, if you're not doing some things, if you're not treating people right. We're a very self-regulating industry.
That's pretty much it. I was going to ask you what your favorite apple is.
Sugar beet.
Sugar beet?
It's sugar beet. We have this new Koru apple. I really like it. I just haven't eaten it as much. We're getting some apples this year with some third leaf trees, which means the tree's 3 years old, and they taste unbelievably better than the ones from last year. It's almost like a totally different apple. So I'm really excited about that apple. I haven't had a lot of them from this year's crop, but I could eat a Koru, a rocket, or sugar beet, just interchangeably.
Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, you bet.
Canada is it's kind of getting centralized. Like the farms are getting kind of bigger and bigger. Like
Here
people
too.
buying up. Yeah.
So my family's been buying out smaller growers that want to get out. They'll buy them out. You got to be careful about that though, because if you get too many small farms all around, you're driving around with equipment trying to farm it. It gets very expensive and unproductive. You want like 100-acre block square, and then 100, all right there, so you can just farm it. When you start getting into these bits and pieces, I look at a lot of these growers have 5 acres, 10, 20. Probably one tractor, one guy, and a mower and sprayer can probably take care of 75 acres. So when you start looking at a guy that's got 20 acres and he's got a tractor, and another guy 20 acres, he's got a tractor, another guy 20 acres, there's 3 tractors and 3 labor guys to farm 60 acres, right? Yeah. Versus a guy who's bigger and he has 500 acres, every 75 acres he's got one tractor and a guy, so look how much cheaper it is.
More efficient, say I'd like to grow for...
Well, so you have individual families, like the Gebbers, it's all one family, and they grow, and the Bortons are all one family. Ours, and so, but the co-op, they have between 250 and 300 growers, and they'll sign a contract in March saying, I'll bring all my fruit to you, and then you pack it, and then every year they can re-up and do that. If they're kind of an outside grower, the co-op growers actually own part of the co-op, so their incentive is to come and bring their fruit and make the co-op profitable, because at the end of the year they'll get like a dividend check in addition. If the co-op runs for cheaper than they budgeted, then money goes back to the growers. It's called not equity, they call it what do they call it? What's the word they use? Anyway, it just basically talks about the money that's, if you were to just shut the whole thing down, there's a pocket of money that sits in that co-op, and it would just go out to all the growers and it'd be done. So it really does, that money really doesn't matter unless you go to shut down and everybody just leaves. But that money is kept there. It's used for capital expenditures, emergencies, just kind of whatever.
So your growers, like, are they near here, or is there like a lot of, are they pretty spread out across the state?
So our growers from this area where we are up here, from about south of here 20 miles is where it kind of starts. It goes all the way to the Canadian border, and they just live like over in those houses. They just live wherever. And then when you get south of us, we don't really have anything for about another 50 miles, and then the Borton company's down in Yakima. And that's just one family. So you got to think about, so the Gebbers and the Bortons, 2 families, probably have, between the kids growing the fruit and workers, there might be 50 of them, and they're growing twice as much fruit as the co-op that has 300 growers. So the funny thing about a co-op is that if you go to my cousin Mac, who's one of our big growers up here, and you pay him $100,000 a year, and you pay each of his 10 guys that work for him 80, let's just say that's close to $1 million to grow that crop. If you go and pay 300 growers 100 grand. Think how much money that is. And so it's tougher for the co-op because you got all these individual growers that all want to make 100 grand a year or more.
Yeah.
But can they based on the fruit they produce? So these family farms get pretty productive because they've got lower cost. They've got 5 or 6 guys farming 5,000 acres,
Right.
and then running a bunch of crews of workers. Which, to some of your questions, yes, we have H2A workers. We get about 1,200 a year from Mexico and about 800 a year from Jamaica.
Okay.
This year we brought in some of the Jamaican women on an H2B program, and they worked in the warehouse. That was great.
Okay.
The Jamaican workers are great in that they speak English. They like to smoke pot, but they're extremely clean. And when they move out of their quarters, you'd almost not even know they were there.
Yeah.
They're literally just immaculate.
Yeah.
But they don't work really hard, honestly. But they're tall, and so you can get a lot of work done without having to be on a ladder.
Yeah.
The Mexicans speak Spanish. We speak Spanish up here. I don't, but most of our people do. And they'll just trash the places they live in, but they work like animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they work really hard.
Yeah.
So, you know, the labor thing is a real challenge up here. It's probably our biggest challenge is the labor and the adverse wage rate, and what Olympia, which is our state capital, us, California, and Maryland have the 3 highest wages, minimum wages in the country.
Okay. What is the minimum wage here?
I think it's 12 something, but honestly, we pay our people about in the orchards about $16 up to $20.
Oh, they get paid per hour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you get paid by piece, like when they're picking. We'll pay the cherry pickers by the lug. Some of them pick fast enough that they'll make $27 an hour.
Yeah.
They're making pretty good money.
Yeah.
And then they get medical provided, they get free transportation, they get free housing. So you're making $20 an hour and you have no housing cost, no transportation cost, no medical cost.
Right.
You basically are buying your food and clothes and your entertainment.
Do you guys pay to fly them up here?
Yep.
Too? Yeah.
$1,200 a person.
Oh.
So before they ever lift a finger to do any work, figure 2,000 workers at $1,200 a piece.
Yeah.
That's your investment.
Yeah.
And the H2A housing is interesting in that half the hotel rooms in Wenatchee wouldn't even qualify for us to put our workers in.
Okay.
Yet people come in from Seattle and stay in them.
Yeah.
You know, we're just like, wow, what's wrong with these hotel rooms? Well, they wouldn't qualify according to H2A.
Huh. I guess it's just hard to find that much labor here, eh? People wanting to do that job.
Well, we bring them in. I mean, we still have Mexican workers, and you kind of wonder how long that'll last, because more and more jobs are being created in Mexico that are kind of keeping those people from wanting to come up here.
Right.
Of course, in Jamaica, there's nothing there. I mean, a guy will come up here and make more in 8 months than he'd make in 10 years back there. So they go home like millionaires.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the whole program is that when we go back down there, they can come up here for 11 months or 8 months, then they go back. We have to go back down every March and re-interview them to come up here. If they've had any kind of felony charge or any interaction with the law, it can completely keep them from coming back. So what's been interesting is for people in the Jamaica and the government to tell us how the work program up here is actually curbing the crime rate and the drug trafficking down in Jamaica. Because those guys go home and go, I'm not going to get involved in some stupid drug thing for 2 months and screw away my opportunity to make a ton of money in the States.
Yeah.